Regardless of your allegiance, whether it's iOS or Android, you've got a ton of options to choose from. How's it going, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and this holiday shopping decision is about to get a little bit harder. The Samsung Galaxy Note 2 is an awesome phablet device. It's coming to 5 U.S. carriers this time around in time for the holiday season. It's coming to Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and U.S. Cellular, and it's packing a quad-core Exynos processor, 4G LTE when it hits the States, or HSPA Plus on T-Mobile, an 8-megapixel camera, and Android 4.1. Then you have the Apple iPhone 5 over here, very popular on AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint in the States with the postpaid carriers, and it's got iOS 6, an 8-megapixel camera, a revised body, and more. It's time to do a dogfight between these two to see which one is the ultimate device in terms of specs, features, and more. Let's find out, but first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like this for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game, which we turn around and give to you on the site at instantwin.phonedog.com. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile to get either of these devices, you'll walk out working. They help you set up your email, your web, your contacts, so whether you get the Note 2 or the iPhone 5, you'll walk out working. Let's take a look at these. Note 2, iPhone 5. Which one's the ultimate smartphone for this holiday season? We'll find out in the dogfight, which starts right now. I'm all about doing some comparisons between iOS and Android. This is another one that's really awesome that I've been excited about because these are going to be two hot devices as we go into the holiday season. This is a Samsung Galaxy Note over here. This is coming to 5 U.S. carriers by the end of the year. Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and of course U.S. Cellular as well. It's going to be available at varying price points, I'm sure. It's got a 1.6 gigahertz quad-core Exynos processor, a 5.5-inch Super AMOLED HD display without pin tile this time around, an 8-megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD video recording, a giant 3,100 milliamp hour battery, and then Android 4.1, known as Jelly Bean, with TouchWiz user interface installed on top of this. So awesome in terms of specs. It's kind of like a Galaxy S3 turbocharged, and this also marks the first device in the States that gets an Exynos processor, a quad-core Exynos processor, and 4G LTE connectivity. So the processor will not be changing, even though this is the international version. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint will get, well, with the exception of T-Mobile, will get 4G LTE connectivity and a 1.6 gigahertz quad-core Exynos CPU. So I see this as really being a great device for a lot of people that are road warriors, because it's got a giant 3,100 milliamp hour battery. So that's getting right up there in like Droid Razr HD Max territory, or Droid Razr Max territory with a 3,300 milliamp hour battery. It's going to be great for those long days, and even though it has a large display that's an HD display and it has 4G LTE, or will have 4G LTE, which, of course will be a battery hog by all counts, the 3,100 milliamp hour battery would be relatively nice. Then there's the iPhone 5 over here, available now on Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint. Very popular device, iconic, obviously made by Apple. And the upgrade, it's more of an evolutionary upgrade, and that seems to be Apple's kind of design theory right now. They're kind of evolutionarily upgrading. You can see some new design changes. The screen is larger. It's a 4-inch Retina display now. But the interesting thing here, they basically took an iPhone 4S and just kind of stretched it out. There's no additional width here. It's the exact same size on the width portion rather, but it's gotten taller. So 4-inch Retina display, 8-megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording back here, and some new tricks there. A nano SIM card slot here. You got a front-facing HD camera. You have iOS 6. You have an Apple A6 dual-core CPU that's clocked somewhere around 1.3 gigahertz. And you're going to see some changes down here. Apple's Lightning port on this now, so gone is the traditional iPhone/iPod charging standard, and a new design as well. So obviously, darker aluminum. This is the black and kind of dark aluminum version. There's also a white and regular aluminum version, but you've got a nice metal back here. You've got the signs that look great. It's thinner, it's lighter, and it's upgraded all around. It's much, much lighter than the original, and it has 4G LTE connectivity as well. So whether you're on Verizon, Sprint, or AT&T, if you're in a market that supports it, it's got 4G LTE connectivity. So huge upgrade here. That said, this was the first time ever in my time of reviewing Apple devices where I'm like, they're really playing catch up to a lot of the Android devices instead of it being the other way around. Arguably, iPhone revolutionized, I can't talk today, smartphones in 2007. Now they're kind of playing catch up, but we'll talk more about that later on in the video. Here's the applications drawer over here. This is an international device, so there aren't any pre-installed carrier applications out of the gate here on any of them. Obviously, when they roll out on T-Mobile and Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, etc., US Cellular, they will have pre-installed carrier bloatware. That's it out of the gate. On the international version, you do get All Share, you get Chat On, you'll see some Samsung stuff like Game Hub, you'll see things like, where did it go? Samsung applications or Samsung apps. You'll probably see Music Hub in the States, and then that's about it in terms of the Samsung stuff. But this brings a wealth of new features. We'll talk about the hardware as well. You've got your power button over here on this side, your S Pen down here at the bottom, and then over here, obviously did not do a good enough job of putting the battery door back on. Volume rocker over here, micro USB charging port down here at the bottom, 3.5mm headphone jack up top, and then of course the 8-megapixel camera with a flash on the back alongside the speakerphone port down there. So again, take a look at this in comparison. I don't have the original Note handy at the moment, but much easier to hold in the hand. And then down here, 2 capacitive buttons, very similar to the Galaxy S3. And then of course, your on-screen button, or your physical home button rather, as well. So Android 4.1 in this device, as you can see here. Let me remove this. And we'll come down here, Android 4.1, as you can see, running on top, TouchWiz. Typical TouchWiz look and feel here with the different shortcuts up top, but you get a screen brightness shortcut up here, and then you have your settings. And they've added a ton of software additions, as you can see here. We'll go down through here and just show you a couple of them. One of them, they've really broadened and kind of enhanced the S Pen functionality on this device. And you can see, for example, when I pulled out the S Pen, it showed that it was detached. There's also a cool feature where if you get too far away from the S Pen, the Note will pop up with a message saying, hey, you're moving away from the S Pen. You probably want to go back and get that sucker. That's probably not what the message says. That's actually not what it says, but that's how I interpret it. The S Pen itself has also undergone a pretty dramatic transformation, having gotten longer and a little bit bigger as well, making it easier to hold in the hand for content creation. So, and then you'll see the cursor as well, much like the Note 10.1 over here, the cursor when you get close to the device. And it's great for a couple things, which we'll talk about later, like this, applications, video player, doing previews like that without actually touching the device. And then when I pull away, it automatically goes away from the preview. That's a nice little feature as well. Other things include Page Buddy, where when I pull out the S Pen or I plug in my headphones, I get a customized home page in addition to the 7 that are already on the device. Or I kind of get my Page Buddy here, and I can see all the different features I can do with the S Pen. So 7 home screens in this device, very fast here as well, thanks to the quad-core processor, and Android 4.1 works really well across the board. Then you have the iPhone 5 over here, very fast as well, 1,440 milliamp hour non-removable battery. iOS 6 is definitely getting long in the tooth here. It looks almost identical to the way it looked in 2007. They've added some improvements though, like the ability to tweet directly from the notifications area here. So when I tap to tweet, you can see it brings up the keyboard and brings up my Twitter shortcut. Same thing with Facebook. When I have Facebook integration enabled, it pops up to the right of this Twitter button. So I do have that feature as well. Out of the gate, no carrier installed applications due to the agreements with Apple that the various carriers have, but you can see typical look and feel here with the app drawer, the app stuff on each side, and then of course I can scroll to the left to access my search iPhone prompt. Other than that, very similar to previous versions. You've got 4 icons down here. You'll notice they added an additional row as well of applications. So I have 5 now on each screen instead of 4, thanks to the larger 4-inch display. Very interesting to work with this over the course of a couple of weeks, because after using a 4S both as my personal device and working with one in later months, I can tell you it just feels like they've taken an iPhone and just kind of smushed it out. It feels a little bit more like a TV remote, although I will say it's beautifully designed. In terms of the design department, nobody beats Apple, at least right now in terms of design. Granted, it may be a little bit easier to break, but I've been pretty impressed overall with the design of this. It looks fantastic in terms of overall look and feel. Taking software out of the equation, it's a very nice device, so that's something to keep in mind. So if you go style over substance, this may be a good device for you. And that's not to say that there aren't a lot of great features on the iPhone as well. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more robust with some content creation opportunities thanks to the S Pen, and you're okay with more of a plasticky design, the Note 2 is probably going to be your device. Let's take a look at messaging on both of these devices, and I'm going to open up a message over here. I've been using this as my personal device as part of my 30-day Samsung Galaxy Note 2 challenge, and I'll tell you, you do get a couple of different keyboards out of the gate. You get Samsung Chinese IME, Samsung keyboard, Google voice typing on the international version, and then of course I've downloaded the Jelly Bean keyboard from Google Play. There are a wealth of options you can download from Google Play. That's just one of them that I happen to enjoy. But again, portrait to landscape transitions, nice and fast here. And then over here I've got my recipient and then my message, and again you can see the cursor kind of changes depending on what application I'm in. Over here messages will load this up. Similar look and feel over here that you're familiar with. Again, nothing has changed on the sides. What I found particularly interesting on the iPhone 5 is when you go into landscape mode, you'll notice there's a lot of gray area here. I would have thought they would have made the keyboard larger with the 4-inch display, but really all they've done is preserve the existing look and feel of the keyboard from the 4S and just added some gray space around the sides to make it work with the 4-inch display. Kind of disappointing there. I was hoping the keyboard would be a little bit larger for those with larger fingers that want an iPhone but aren't necessarily happy with a 4-inch display. It could be much easier for them to work with something if the keyboard were a little bit larger in landscape mode. That said, fluidity absolutely fantastic across the board on the iPhone 5. I've had some issues with the 5 with overall touch responsiveness. I find that it's not as good as the 4S, and I don't know if that's the way that they're doing the new display now or if that's because of iOS 6. It could be one or both. I've heard some issues with iOS 6 on the 4 and the 4S, so that may be a software thing, but we'll just do the quick brown fox. Let's turn the sound back on here. Is happy to be here on a Thursday. Quick Fox is happy to be here on a Thursday. Portrait to landscape fast. But you can really see when I type something like event over and over again, I don't type it at a perfect speed. You can see that it slurs or stutters a little bit and has an issue. Over here, I'm using the Jelly Bean keyboard that I downloaded. Quick Brown Fox is happy to be here on Thursday. Quick Brown Fox is happy to be here on Thursday. Portrait to landscape transition, and of course you get the benefit over here as well with the Samsung keyboard of using the S Pen to do some sort of drawing to text translation if that's something that you're interested in. Now obviously this does come with Google Now as well as S Voice, Samsung's solution, but you can see by pressing and holding the home button I access my task manager here, which I can easily again scroll. Without actually touching the display, I can scroll up and down with the new features of the S Pen, as you can see there. But then I can go into Google Now and take a look at the weather and more, and then I can use the benefits of this application. So we can go in here and say, and granted, internet connectivity is absolutely terrible right now in my office. AT&T does not work very well in here, despite being in Uptown Charlotte. Google, what's the weather like in Charlotte? We'll let that do its thing while this is loading up. PhoneDog.com. 5 things to watch in the VP debate. I was reading an article earlier. And it brings up the weather right here. Unfortunately, it did not bring up the weather card for whatever reason, but it did bring up the search stuff as well as images, places, and more. You can look up sports teams, all that good stuff with Google Now. And then, of course, you have Samsung solution, S Voice, right here as well. And I can skip through that and access that at a later point. Let's load up PhoneDog.com, see if it'll load up here. PhoneDog. Like I said, internet connectivity is not the best. It's very hit or miss in the office. I use Chrome on the Note 2. There's obviously an internet browser that comes out of the gate that is not Chrome, but I find that Chrome is very responsive. And of course, thanks to a huge 5.5-inch display, this is very easy to do things like browse the web, listen to music, look at music videos, check out YouTube and more. Very pleased with that. And then over here, pinch to zoom, incredibly responsive. iPhone, incredibly good with fluidity. No different here. That said, Android is caught up, and particularly TouchWiz does a fantastic job of really preserving fluidity. So a year ago, I would have said all Android devices are no match to the iPhone in terms of fluidity, keeping fluidity apart from everything else. Absolutely fluid here, beautiful, no lag whatsoever when you're going from portrait to landscape. Now, with Android 4.0 and up, combined with devices, or combined with UIs like TouchWiz, Motorola's UI, and Sense 4, I'm finding that it's very competitive, so you can obviously see maybe a little bit more stutter than the iOS device alternative. That said, it's close enough where now we can kind of move on from the fluidity discussion and talk more about specs and features and things like that. And I think that is where the Android devices, at least 4.0, 4.1 and above, jump ahead of the iPhone in a lot of aspects. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll cover additional features, software features, camera settings, speed tests, and more.